Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we're talking springtime topwater. Spring topwater is a giant category. I mean, it's a downright overwhelming category when we start pulling out all the boxes. I just pulled the boxes out of my rod locker so that I could take a look here, and it's frankly, it's ridiculous. I mean, box of whopper ploppers, box of poppers, 2 boxes of walking baits. The only category that was simple at all was frogs, and that's just because I keep it really simple early season where I'm at right now. So you can go broke and you could go crazy trying to dial in your topwater. So what I want to do today is take our 4 main categories, and that's going to be poppers, walking baits, straight retrieve baits, and frogs. And I just want to drum them down for you. I want to make them simple for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these boxes and I'm going to look in them and try and pick out, you know, like an all-around bait, or the bait I pick up when I'm looking for big fish, or a bait for a certain situation. Really just try and pull some gems out of my boxes that I have a ton of confidence in, and then try and give that to you so that you can fish with confidence too, and hopefully understand the situations that these different baits are for. With that said, color is a big deal too, and color differs between all of them. Like, my favorite color whopper plopper is completely different than my favorite colored frog, completely different than my favorite colored popper. It really depends on how the bait is being worked, what kind of color I want on that bait, even more than, say, where I am in the country or what I'm imitating. Let's start with poppers, okay? I'll give you a look at the box, and I'm telling you right now, there's not a loser in this box. I mean, if a guy wanted to buy every one of these, he could go out and catch fish on them. That's what makes this so complicated. I mean, there's a reason all of these are in the box I have in my boat, right? These aren't packed away somewhere. This is what I'm carrying around with me. But with that said, I think I can really narrow it down for you. So poppers, let's pick out like an all-around bait, and then like a fine-tuned, like I really want to get bit kind of a bait. And then a bigger fish type bait. Man, that sounds easy rolling out of my mouth, and then I look at this box and whew, this box is full of winners. Okay, I'm gonna go here. Here. Okay, and then the last one's easy. That's gonna be right here. Okay, so out of this entire box, I've pulled 3 poppers. Here we go, poppers first. When do you throw a popper? For me, poppers in the spring, it's all about low light or dead calm. One of those 2 situations. Like where I'm sitting right now, see how calm this pocket is? This screams popper to me. If I'm coming in here to throw a topwater, out of my 4 categories, no question, it's a popper. But I'll also throw them, you know, offshore, out on points, things like that, when it's slick. A popper will catch every species of bass, but I'll tell you what, I mean, they crush largemouth, but it goes to the next level with smallmouth and spotted bass. They lose their minds over a popper way more than all the other baits. It's really incredible. So, if I could only have one, I'm gonna go with this guy right here. It's affordable and it catches them. That's a Damiki D-Pop. I think they call it a D-Pop 70. Maybe there's probably a name on it. Yep, D-Pop 70. The D-Pop is just a really good, affordable bait that catches fish. I mean, if you just need a popper and you wanna go out and know if there's a popper bite, it will catch them, that will catch them. Just a solid bait. I've been very happy with that for a very, very long time. It's got a good action. So with a popper, I don't force them. I don't like rip those poppers very often, except maybe a chug bug. That's kind of a specialized bite. When I fish a popper, I like that calm water, and I like just bloop, bloop, bloop. You know, 1, 2, or 3 pops. Let it sit. 1 pop, let it sit. 2 pops, let it sit. Now, if a fish blows up on it and misses, a good popper, you can also walk the dog with it, and it will actually walk super tight, almost in place, like a big walking bait. So, number 1's gonna be the D-pop. Now, if I really want to fine tune it, like I'm in a highland reservoir, crystal clear water, I can take it to the next level with the Yellow Magic. I crush them on that thing, but you're going to pay more money for it. Now let me show you something here. Yellow Magic comes in 2 sizes. Here's a big one. Ooh, almost got my toe on that one. Okay, there's a big Yellow Magic. There's the little guy. I'm talking about the little guy, okay? If you had to choose, if you're trying to fine tune a bite, it's the little one. They will crush that thing in clear water. Now, that's not to say the big one's not money. I mean, look, this one's been beat to pieces. I have torn it up. It's a great bait too. But again, I'm trying to narrow this down. So number 1, D-pop, just all around. If I want to dial it in, the smaller Yellow Magic. And of course, I'm gonna link all these in the video description, and I'll include my specific favorite colors for each model as well. And then if I want to upsize, if I want to catch bigger fish, I'm already catching fish, I want to try and get a kicker, or maybe I'm around largemouth, I'm not around smallmouth or spotted bass, Megabass Pop Max. There's a Pop X, so sort of like the Yellow Magic has 2 sizes. See if I can fish one of these out of here. That's a Pop X. That's a Pop Max. See how much bigger the Pop Max is? It's just plain a bigger bait. And it walks remarkably. I mean, it walks like a walking bait. It does a great job. But that is my big fish popper. Now, we could go way farther down the rabbit hole. I could shoot this entire video inside that popper box, no problem. But we're gonna leave it there because simplicity is key when you're just trying to get out there and catch fish. As far as colors go with the popper, I'm going one of 2 places. I go natural bait fish profiles, right? Kind of a ghosty bait fish, solid bait fish, or bluegill profiles. Again, think about where we're throwing this bait. Backs of pockets in the spring. You've got bluegill up there, you've got little bait fish up there. So I try to base it on where I'm throwing those baits. And I tend to throw that popper in clearer water. Okay, that wraps up poppers. Let's do walking baits. Walking baits is so much worse because it's 2 boxes worth. And same deal. This is what I'm carrying in my boat. It's not like there's a loser in the bunch. But if I had to pull them out, all right, I'm gonna pull that one. This one's full of teeth marks. I'm gonna take him for sure. And I'm gonna take this guy. Let me just stare at the box, make sure I didn't mess up. Okay, yeah, those 3. I don't know how we ended up doing 3 of each category, but that seems to be where we're at. Walking baits. Baits that get up. You can cover water with them, but they're not just flying across the surface, right? They're walking. Fish have time to catch up to them, to follow them, to study them before they decide to commit and eat that thing. Walking baits, the concept is simple. You got 50 walking baits, they all walk, right? Okay, couple things about walking baits. Number 1 is that given a choice, I want 3 hooks on my walking bait. I have one exception. One of these baits is a 2-hooked bait. But generally speaking, I want 3 hooks on my walking bait. It just ups my odds, because when that bait is walking and they come up and blow on it, a lot of times it's like a slashing bite. When they come up on a popper, they just come up and eat it. A lot of times on a walking bait, they slash, they come from the side. It's easy for them to miss. So with that in mind, 3 hooks just ups my odds of catching them. Now, historically, hands down, my favorite walking bait is this one right here. This is a River to Sea Rover. Now, the general profile of a Rover, there's probably half a dozen companies that have a similar profiled bait, but all of them have different sounds. And of all those different sounds, the Rover has this combination of a loud knock and rattle. And that combination has been deadly for me. Traveling around the country, where we used to live, I would just do incredibly well with that Rover. So if I was just gonna have one, that's the one. However, in recent years, we have latched onto this bait. This is an Evergreen Shower Blows. We have done so much damage on this. I mean, if you follow the channel, this is not a surprise to you, right? The Shower Blows comes in a bunch of sizes. The 105 and the 125. This is the 125. That's a 105, okay? I'm not sure I could even pick a favorite between those 2 sizes. That's the one where I'm just gonna say both of those are excellent. They both just plain catch fish. And I will beat the paint off of all of them. It's just a deadly bait. Cupped face, splashes a lot of water when it's walking, so different profile, and then just a different sound. Totally different sound. That's what people miss with topwaters. They're not the same at all. Both of those are great. And then the last one is this little guy. Now he's only got 2 hooks, and it's a much smaller bait. Rapala Skitterwalk. I have crushed them on this. In fact, he's covered in teeth marks. This bait started shining for me, I think it was 2 years ago in the fall is when I picked this up. It's either 2 years ago or 3 years ago. My bass were eating smaller bait fish, and I was trying to match that. You know, so way too big, way smaller. I was just trying to match those smaller shad, and I ended up with this bait, and it just started knocking it out of the park for me. So much so that I fell in love with it. I throw it all over the place. When I want a smaller profiled walking bait, that's my bait. I mean, look, it's basically the same size as a Pop Max, right? It's like a big popper rather than a walking bait, but it just catches them. So 3 walking baits for you, all of which are great options. If you're trying to match smaller bait fish in your lake, that is such a killer option. If you're trying to cover water and just have a blast throwing a big walking bait, watching those fish just blow on that thing, Rover or Shower Blows, you just can't go wrong. And again, my box is full of great options. Spro is a great option. Vixens when you can get them. The Mega Bass. We got the Lucky Crafts. Savage Gear 13. All sorts of different things in here. But I want to narrow it down and give you the baits that work the most often in the most situations. So that again, you can go out there with confidence. And then with my walking baits, in terms of color, I'm going to go with, it's sort of the same thing, bait fish profiles, but more often than not, I lean to the chartreuses. I use more chartreuse in this by far than compared to poppers. Way more chartreuse with my walking baits. But then again, just bait fish profiles too. And then if I'm up north, like way north, chasing smallmouth, that sort of thing, bone is a major, major player as well. Here's a bone colored topwater. Those are my keys in that group. And that's not to say I don't throw chrome, I don't throw pink, I don't throw all sorts of different things. I do. But if we're going to narrow it down, get you some chartreuse, get you a general bait fish color, you're in business. Now whopper ploppers. Well, not just whopper ploppers, straight retrieve baits. About the only two that are going to be in this category for me are a whopper plopper and a buzz bait. Now I'm going to make this really simple, okay? Whopper ploppers crush it. If you're targeting big largemouth, big ones, the 130 size whopper plopper is the deal. It literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of big fish have come in my boat on a whopper plopper 130. How's that? It gets them. That said, as I travel around the country, I find that I spend way more time throwing a whopper plopper 110. Okay? Smaller profile, smaller hooks, much quieter when it's running through the water. I have an incredible amount of confidence in the 110 as I go around the country. And then the smaller sizes, of the three, I would say the 90 is my most comfortable. Here's the 90. I throw that 90 when I'm around spotted bass, smallmouth, smaller largemouth, that sort of thing. I really keep it that simple. If I could only have one, it'd be a 110 for sure. Now whopper ploppers, I throw in, my number one color is bone. When I was in the West, that was not true. My number one color out there, something with a little bit of chartreuse on it. A little chartreuse, a little bit of bluegill. Those were my ticket. But the bulk of the country, bone whopper plopper. The whopper plopper is so loud, so obnoxious, going by so fast that that obnoxious color just seems to make it that much greater. If they're gonna lose their minds and eat it, they're gonna eat the bone one even better. If I'm not throwing bone, I'm throwing typically a white leaning towards baitfish. Basically like a softer bone color, something like this. Still bright, still bold, still harsh, just not bone. And then the other one, the funny one, is called monkey butt, which is almost, in all fairness, like a ghost minnow color. Back on Clear Lake, that was the deal. That was the color. So with whopper ploppers, that's that. But the other half of that category would be buzz baits. You guys know that we, over the years, have talked a ton about throwing double buzzes, about throwing plastic quad blades, all sorts of different baits. I don't have a plastic quad blade with me today. I will link one in the description because that's a major, major player. But the other one that has really taken over this category for me are these skirtless buzz baits. Okay, this one's a Dirty Jigs, half ounce. Half ounce is just my all-around buzz bait size for any buzz bait because they tend to track the best. Sometimes buzz baits, the blade will be pulling so hard it'll pull them off to the side. They'll either run crooked or run on their side. Half ounce is the best for getting those things to just always track straight. These come with a toad in the package. Tell you what, personally, I do way better with a swim bait. So this is a Kitech 4.8. A River to Sea D-Walker is actually my favorite trailer for this bait. I don't have them with me because I took them out and put them in the other boat to go striper fishing, however. But the D-Walker is deadly, but so is a Kitech. The difference is a Kitech I'll have to replace over and over. That D-Walker will take a beating. So that is the buzz bait with the swim bait on it, okay? That profile, you get the clack and the flash and the sound of a buzz bait, but when they're looking at it, they're not looking at a big skirt and all the stuff. They're just looking at a swim bait right under the surface, swimming. In places where buzz baits get thrown a lot, these skirtless buzzes have changed the game. I mean, changed it. They far outshine all the other buzz baits. So when do I throw a whopper plopper? When do I throw a buzz bait? Ready for this? This is easy. Is there grass? Is there wood? Are there leaves? Is there any debris that is in your way? Don't throw a whopper plopper. Throw a buzz bait. If there's nothing in your way, if it's open water, throw a whopper plopper 100% of the time. It's that simple. The whopper plopper dominates the straight retrieve category now. It just does. In terms of catching fish, it does. But the downfall of a whopper plopper is one blade of grass touches that hook, bait's done for. Just starts spinning. The whole bait, not the tail, the whole bait starts spinning. You've got to burn it in, it's twisting up your line, you got to deal with that and try again. So if there's any junk in the water whatsoever, skirtless buzz. If the fish are dirt shallow back in the pockets, that plastic quad blade, because it goes super slow and it's super subtle. I throw that quad blade in similar places to where I throw a popper, if that really helps narrow that down. And then buzz baits, like skirtless, I typically just go silver because I can throw all my natural colored swim baits on there. For the quad blade, I throw a lot of black and a lot of black and red. Personal confidence, just sort of a niche-y thing I do early and late in the day trying to get a monster bite up shallow. Last but not least, frogs, and this will wrap up the video. If I had done this video 3 or 4 years ago, I'm telling you right now, frog color would go like this: chartreuse, then white, then black, then everything else. But over the last couple of years, I've spent more time in the eastern half of the country. And now my color arrangement would go chartreuse, then bluegill, then white, then black. Okay? That has changed for me just because of the success that I've been having with bluegill colored frogs. Early season like we are right now, open water frog fishing is amazing. It can be so good, but you have to be able to walk the frog, and some frogs work better than others. Another thing I've noticed is that this time of year I do way better with the smaller profiled frogs rather than the big full profiles that I throw most of the year. So little Jackal Kiara, the little Spro, are the frogs that I have in the boat with me right now. I don't have a whole frog box. I have these two thrown in here in case I run into a situation where I need to throw a frog. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about where my confidence lies. I've got all those, and 2 frogs, right? Both a bluegill profile. For this time of year, you know, Chickamauga, some of these lakes around here, fish are dirt shallow. Little frog, bluegill profile, done deal. But generally, countrywide, number 1 for me, chartreuse. Chartreuse frogs crush it. And then white, and then black, and then everything else. Keep it simple. Go out there, fish with confidence. You can catch topwater fish early. You probably could have caught them last month and maybe the month before, unless you're up north. The farther south you are, that bite has been going. But even middle of the country, it typically fires off in March, way before people think that it fires off. And when you do get early season bites, they're big ones. So don't be afraid to get out there and throw that topwater. In the video description, I will link you. I won't even go through talking about it, but I will link you my all-around favorite topwater rod. So that's like I could throw a whopper plopper on it or a walking bait on it. Poppers are a different animal. Frogs are obviously a different animal, but I'll link you my all-around favorite. It is not a budget-friendly combo, but I will also link a budget-friendly combo. And then if there's room, I'll link you a good popper rod, and I'll link you a really good frog rod as well. Guys, I hope this helps you. you really can narrow it down. Hopefully from each of those categories, I mean, that was a few baits in each category, but you don't need all of them, right? We talked about 3 poppers. But if you're like, hey, I'm way up north and I'm not largemouth fishing, you probably take that Pop Max and at least in the beginning of the season, set it down. Now we're down to 2. You really want to narrow it down. You don't throw a popper very often, so you don't need to own a bunch of them. Well, then spend the extra, get a Yellow Magic, put it on light line, and just have a blast. Well, you just need 1 popper. You just want to throw it into the mix sometimes. You don't want to break the bank. Hands down, D-pop, right? You don't need to buy all of these different baits, but listen to which ones shine, and then in each category, grab the one that makes the most sense for you. Hopefully this is helpful. I really enjoyed it. I've got to admit, I was a little overwhelmed when I popped the boxes open. Like, these are the baits that I have faith in. There's not a bad bait in the box, right? They're all there for a reason. So it's hard to just pluck a couple of them out. We could do this video over again and just take 1 box and talk about why every bait is in there, right? That'd be its own animal, but it is a lot of fun and it's challenging to narrow it down to those key baits. You know, I'm thinking, if I had to go on the road and I could only take a handful, what would I grab and why? And that's how I came up with that list. So hopefully that was helpful for you. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.